Hey, welcome everyone. We are in Parshat Naso, the amazing story of the Nazarite, the Nazir. To understand this, it's a strange dynamic. It is a person who apparently wants to get to a level of holiness, of Kedusha, and thereby he takes on three things that he has to do. What are the three things? One is he is not allowed to come in contact with the dead. Tumas Mace. One. Two, he can't drink wine or any wine derivative. Any grape things, somehow wine is the key here, and he has to separate from wine. Third thing is he can't cut his hair. So whatever the Nazareth period he is, could be 30 days, it could be a whole life. It depends how long he chooses, but he can't cut his hair. Right. There's a certain thing about someone who's has his whole life. He may be able to just not to cut it, but to ease the weight. That's the discussion. Anyway, those are three things that a Nazarite is not allowed to do. And why is he doing this? It's a vow he takes of Nazareth, of being Nazir, and apparently he's doing it to reach a level of holiness. That's what it would seem. And then to talk about it, because he is called a Nezer Elokav. It's called the crown. And Nazir is the language of Nazir. A Nezer is it's a crown. And he has the crown of God, so he's holy. But we're going to see there are different opinions that actually say he is a chote. He's a sinner. Now, there's two different ways we understand maybe he's a sinner. Simple explanation is it's talking about specifically a Nazir that became impure unintentionally. Of course, intentionally is even worse, but unintentionally he got exposed to a dead body, and therefore somehow he's called now a chote, sinner, because he has lost his Nazarite status, and there's a problem with that, which you need to understand because it's not his fault apparently. So why is he really called a chote in the nefesh? He's chote in the soul because he an accident. What he do wrong? The other problem is there's another opinion that seems to say, Lazar Copper, was that he is actually a sinner because he prevented himself from drinking wine. He is removing himself from this world, and that's not appropriate. To understand these two opinions, how they work. Because really, what is the idea of this Nazareth? The Nazir. What is he doing this for? And the story in the parsha starts out. We said the story of the Sota, the woman who committed adultery, and there's the whole procedure of what she does. And the Talmud says, whoever sees a Sota to kill Kulavis, whoever sees a woman going through this whole process of the adulterous woman, he should then realize there's a message for him, and he stays away from wine. And that's why the connecting parsha, chapter to the Sota woman, to the adulterous woman, is the story of the Nazir, the Nazarite, to separate himself from wine. So the implication there is that when a person has a problem of some sort, then it is appropriate to be a Nazir, as we'll see. But we need to understand this because, there were people like Shimshon who was a Nazir from birth, right? Shmuel was a Nazir from birth. Shmuel, his mother decided that, but by Shimshon, Hashem sent the angel, the Malach, to tell the parents he's going to be a Nazir. So there's something about this process that may not only require you having a problem. And that's what I want to try to understand today, this whole dynamic, because it really touches on part of our issues of desire and how to deal with them, how not to deal with them, and sometimes creating more pressure on ourselves, and what is called the Shvila Zohav, the golden middle road, and how to maintain that. So we're going to have to analyze this issue of desires, pleasures, and the solution of the Nazir. Okay. Now I wanna go through a little bit with you. Let's start with the side that the Nazir is only called a sinner if he became impure. Seemingly, if he became impure, by, it says someone died, but suddenly someone died and he didn't know. Why is he called a chot? Called a sinner, and it's not his fault. So according to the opinion that says that's only talking about that person who became impure, it's strange because it was an accident. So I want to share with you what the Kli Yakar says, some very nice ideas here in terms of this. One idea is that a person who is able to hit a middle path in his life and be a person besimcha, enjoy in what they do, in what Hashem set the world up, that this is okay for you, this is not okay for you, these are the parameters that will have you live a healthy, joyous life, okay? Not chasing after desires, not pushing away from desires, but you're balanced, and the Torah has put its proper limitations to make sure that you have this golden path. So the problem with the Nazarite is that he's not in that place. He feels, whoa, if I'm, going to live in this world as it is, I'm going to get drawn into stuff. Maybe he saw the sota, maybe he saw this adulterous woman, something desire inside me. He feels something he needs to do to fix his situation up. Okay, so he takes on the Nazarite vow. Seems to make a lot of sense. The Kli Yakar says an amazing thing, though. He says that what happens is that since you live in a world where what the Torah restricted is not enough for you, you are actually spiritually causing more tests on yourself. You're actually causing that. In other words, what you're doing is that's called Magar, the Yetzer Hara. You're driving the desire and the problems to go further. Let's explain this. The person goes, for example, and he says, okay, I'm not going to eat this. And so sometimes now the thing's obsessed in your mind because you think you're making a stand and you think about it more. Could be if you weren't as nervous about it, it's like, I don't need it, I don't want it. But when you make a big issue out of it and you make a big statement about it, there's a part of us that automatically drives to want it. Okay? Forbidden fruit, Maim Gedulim Taku, it's a verse. It says that the stolen waters are sweet, that a person now starts to want this. So he says this Nazarite, what happens is he's now entered a world where he is, limiting himself. And now there's pressures, even pressures building from the outside. And he says that in the person's own psyche, he starts to resent and regret what he's taken on if he's not committed to it fully. And he says that's even why it happened to him, that the person died in him all of a sudden. And this is an incredible psychological understanding here, because, the person dying on him how did you cause a person to die all of a sudden on it? It makes it strange. But the deeper meaning is that when you enter into a world where you don't want to be there and you're fighting against yourself, problems are going to happen. This guy, maybe the Nazir would have been watchful, would have known where to go or not to go. You know how when you're like in tune with things and you're able to take them in stride and deal with them, and when you're all like this, nervous about it and uptight, then you're not able to really be in control. That's what's happening here. The Nazir, because he's left the path of happiness of what the Torah said is okay and not okay, and now he's put on these pressures on himself. He is stimulating in the entire world this pressure to make him fail. And he himself doesn't want to be doing it, and he actually could be leading to his own failure. So that is a downside of being the Nazir, because if you took it on and it's from a place of pressure, guilt, terrible, then you're probably not going to balance it. even to the point where a person might die and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time because it's not where you want to be. And that's why he's called a chot, it's called a sinner when it's an accident, because a lot of accidents you kind of brought on yourself. Okay, that's one understanding of the Nazir. Now, there is another, which we're going to go to the very famous Nazir story, very famous story of the Nazir. There was a great Rav, great Kohen Gadol, Shimon Tzaddik, who was the last of the men of the Great Assembly. And it says that he never ate the offering of a Nazir that became impure. Now, the question if he ate the offering of a Nazir who was pure seems that he's referring to specifically a Nazir who became impure, and then he has to recount again. He has to go and let's say he would start the Nazareth position, approach, and then he became impure. And whatever he counted, if he let's say they have to do it for I don't know, let's say a year, he counted for 364 days, and now he missed it. Now he's got to start from the beginning. There's got to be an offering before that. And there's the famous story in the Gemara. It says that that Shimon Tzaddik saw this one person coming from the south with beautiful locks of hair, and he says, "Why are you going to destroy those beautiful locks of hair?" And so he's destroying it because he was a Nazarite. He became impure, and now he had to cut the locks and start his count again. So Shimon Tzaddik would never eat the offering of Nazarite who brought it if they became impure. We'll see why. And this one case, he saw this guy and he was very taken aback by this young man with this beautiful locks of hair. He says, "Why are you destroying those locks of hair?" He said, "Well, which what the Nazir does, meaning that if even after he finishes his Nazarite stint, even if it didn't become pure, he has to cut the hair off, and they burn it in the temple. They burn it on the fire of the altar. So the Nazarite always has a process of growing the hair long and then cutting it off and burning it. Either he's cutting it off because his stint has been messed up, he's got to recount, or when he finishes, he has to burn it anyway, cut it. So Shimon says to this Nazarite, says, what makes you cut these beautiful locks? I'll tell you. I was living in the south, and I was a shepherd, and one day I went to draw the water from the well, and I saw my reflection. I said, I'm very beautiful. And I felt the desire coming over me. Okay, which makes sense. When a person feels that they are important, then desire rides on pride. That's the way it works. When a person feels they're nothing, they find they have much less desire. When they feel we're somebody, something, then desire has a place to ride on. So he now saw himself, and he really had full of desire. I'm a great looking guy. I'm going to go out and do my thing. And then he grabbed himself. He says, no, don't, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're being pride in a world that's not yours. And I'm going to cut my hair off for Hashem. Meaning I'm going to become a Nazarite, and then I will cut the hair off. So it says that Shimon Tzaddik kissed him on the head and said, I've never eaten the offering of Nazarite before, but in your case, I will. Okay. And it's Nazarites like you in Israel. Now, what does this mean here? Because it seems from the story that he didn't successfully complete his Nazarite stint. He got impure. But Shimon Tzaddik was looking at the root of why he did it. If a person goes and takes the position of becoming a Nazir from the right motivations, then it's going to be successful. And I'm willing to eat of it. He wouldn't eat it otherwise because he said people start to, especially if a person messed up their count, they regret the whole thing. They say, what did I do this for? I went into this whole thing, and now I thought I could manage for a year, a month, whatever it was, and now I got to do the whole thing over again. And that's the second lesson here in terms of how we deal with ourselves. When we deal with our desires, so there are ways to do it and there are ways not to do it. I once heard from my Rebbe once. He said an amazing thing. It was like, he was teaching the guys in the yeshiva how to deal with the issue of Shmiras Einayim, watching your eyes not to see things you shouldn't see. And he said an amazing principle. He said, when you go and say, I'm never going to look, then you've actually stimulated the Yetzer Hara in you to try to fight you. You say, just this time, though. The next time, we'll see. And then a person can handle it. And this is a very, very important idea. What the Talmud says is there are three entities that a person has to deal with Yamin Makarav, the right hand brings close, and the left hand says no. You can't be too tough. One of those things is the Yetzer Hara, your own negativity. When you try to crush it, it's like an animal that's trapped. A trapped animal is very dangerous because it's going to lash out. You need to be able to have a certain amount of understanding about this. And therefore, when a person feels, okay, I could handle this long of the Nazarite, now I regret the whole thing because it's going to be longer, I didn't think so, what do I do? Then a person is not whole with himself. And that's why Shimon Tzaddik wouldn't eat the offerings, because he said, the Nazarites come, they're making it for all their own reasons, they're all uptight and angry and trying to do this and there, and there's this turmoil inside of them that's not kind of the right place, and they're going to regret whatever it is they do. And if they mess up and they have to restart, they're going to certainly not be okay with it. But this Nazarite who really understood in a thoughtful way, he understood that this was the approach he should do and needed to do. Shimon Tzaddik said, your approach is so helpful that I'm not concerned you're going to regret this. Okay, very nice. Now, let's get to the other opinion that seems to say that a Nazarite is called a sinner even if he doesn't become impure just from holding back on wine. That's very strange, because the Torah calls him holy. He is called holy. Nezer Elokav, he's got the crown of God. It's called Kadosh. He's called holy. The verse in the prophets compares him to the prophets. Now it was the prophets. So what does it mean that he's called a sinner? So it says, because listen, Hashem said you could have wine, and you said no. You held back on something that was permissible. You're a sinner, and so much more so if you're becoming an ascetic. That's really no good. So how do I understand that? So it's a little bit harder, and I think that in terms of this opinion, because there's really two places in the Talmud where it seems to say if it's in every case or not, but I think that it really depends on, again, the person. In other words, even according to Elazar Kapper, who holds that a person is a sinner for a Nazarite, it's because there's a place where you are applying strong medicine. There's a time where you need it, and you should do it, but still strong medicine. Okay? Saying there's the law that a person has a dream on Shabbos that they're supposed to fast for, then they can fast on Shabbos. But they got to fast another day to make up for it. Why? Because you needed the medicine, but you missed out on Shabbos. So you needed the medicine because you're afraid that you're not on this level, you do something wrong, so you have to grab on to be a Nazareth. Now you're holy. But if you would have been able to be straight in the beginning, then maybe you wouldn't need to do it. Now, it still may be that there is a way that some people like Shimshon really had to become a Nazarite, and it was what they needed. And I want to try to explain this by going through the three things that the Nazarite can't do. And they're very weird. I mean, even when you tell people, you think, this is the ascetic. Okay, can't drink wine. Can't cut his hair. What are these three things? Can't drink wine, can't cut your hair, and can't come kind of the dead. Why do those represent something that is going to make a person holy? If we understand this, maybe we can understand how someone like Shimshon and some types of Nazarites might not even have a sin for what they're doing. They're just dealing with life itself. Let's understand. There are three things they can't do, and those three things line up with the three parts of a person. A person is broken up into three parts. The lower parts, which is called the nefesh, the life force, in charge of the physical body, which resides in the liver. The middle part, called the ruach, the wind, that's connected with the heart, which is the personality, the speech, the middle section of a person, literally. And the third part is the head, which is the moach, the mind, and that's called the neshama, the higher part of the soul that's connected with the body. The parts, two parts above, they're not connected with the body, but the three parts are connected to the body. They connect to the mind. That's the highest part, called the neshama. Then there's the middle part, the ruach, connected to the personality, the spirit, the motion. And then there's the lower part connected with the liver, which is the lower part of the body, which is the life force, the physical aspects. And I think what has to happen with the Nazir is that the whole idea is to elevate the person entirely, all the three parts. And if you look at the three things, you'll see they line up perfectly. Let's go. The not coming in contact with the dead. So that is connected with the body. Why? Because the body is a vehicle that holds the soul. And as long as the soul is connected to the body is fine. The problem of impurity is the separation of the soul, which now leaves the body unable to be connected to spirituality. And that's why it decays. Okay, because the body on its own does not have that power. The body pulls in its own direction. Not that the body is not good, but the body has to be controlled. If a horse and a rider, the rider needs to control the horse. The body has to be elevated to become part of the soul. But when the soul leaves, so the body is now a physical entity. And that represents when the Nazir stays away from the body detached from the soul, that means that the Nazir is saying, my physical part that pulls me in a certain way, I'm not going to let it pull me down. Impurity is like, there's a very famous discussion from the great Baal Muslim, Yisrael Salanter, who talks about the negativity, Yetzer Hara, and he has two different ways to explain it. One is desire, and one is sort of like this idea of destruction, that a person sometimes just gets negative. And so the body without the soul is like pulling down just towards, not just physical, but towards muck. And so the Nazir says, I'm going to elevate myself from, on my physical level, I have no connection with the impurity of a body without a soul. Okay. Now, what's the second one? The second one is no wine. Now, that's makes sense, but the Talmud has very different understandings of wine. One place says whoever drinks wine properly has the wisdom of 70 elders. And then it has some negative things about wine. Wine is like it's in-between place. Why? Because wine, it says, makes the heart rejoice. It's the middle part, the personality. You drink wine, you start feeling really good and positive, but also you could act like an idiot. Or you could be elevated. Wine is in the middle, okay? It's connected with the middle part of the person. And I want to explain that's why it's usher here. Wine could be used very well. But the Nazir realizes that he needs to get out of his system. He needs to get out of the things that are pulling him down. And the wine, which will open his heart in a certain way, will also do it in such a way as the middle part of the person that will not elevate him to where he has to go. He's still going to be stuck here. It's still in the middle where it's like, okay, wine can pull me this and pull me that way. A lot of negative things come through the wine. So when he starts drinking, it's going to lead people to bad things also, and very few people can actually drink their wine properly. So the Nazir, who's going to trying to get out of the negative framework, whatever he saw, or just the shackles of life, has to pull away from the wine. He can't go into that area because it's going to be a place that's going to not come out pure for what he wants to accomplish. And that's in the third one. And the third one is really going to be the key here, which is the hair. It's so strange. It grows long hair. What does that mean? And certain places the hair is called holy. The hair itself is called kadosh. And it's burnt on the altar. It's a strange thing, especially strange when you actually know in many of the deeper writings, hair is considered to be the chitzonius, the negative, the mostros, extras. Why? Because every part of a person, if a person gets a needle in their finger, they feel it. In their small toe, they feel it. Because the life force of a person permeates to every part of their being. There's only two aspects of a human being that the life force is connected, but you don't feel the pain. That's your fingernails and your hair. And that's why there's special laws, both when you cut your fingernails and your hair, you need to wash your hands afterwards 3 times because you've cut off a life part of you, and there's impurity, but it's not a life part of you that's essential to you. You don't feel pain when you cut your fingernails or your hair. So very often in the deeper writings, the hair and long hair is associated as a negative thing, like haughtiness, like sort of something that's going past where the person is, and it's not really their life force. It's not them. Let me explain this. There's a certain aspect of, let's say, they talk about, let's say, sometimes people grow their hair long, and specifically for men, women have a different issue why they can grow their hair long, and they, from the Gemara why it's a different story. But the idea sometimes a person has long hair, so what that means sometimes it's a sign of like of haughtiness. I'm like throw your hair back, whatever. It's a certain potentially problematic space. Let's understand why. What is the function of hair then? Well, the function of hair is really for beauty. It's for beauty. Because, you live in a hot country, you don't keep your, maybe you'll be better off with, shaving your head. So the hair is an aspect of beauty. And beauty can be used in a way that can be negative. A person feels I'm more than I am. Let's understand this hair a second, because the hair on the head specifically, let's talk about. What happens is that if your head is the top of you, so now you have something going beyond where you really are, like a crown. Why does the king wear a crown? It's a statement of that there is more beyond my measure. Here's where I am, and now I have a crown, something that takes me beyond. The hair is similar. It's a place where it's like antennas coming out of your brain, out of your head, the top of you, saying, no, you have to top me. There's more. There's above. Now, depends how you use it. If you use it, I'm beyond what makes sense. Doesn't make sense, but I'm beyond that. Then that leads to haughtiness because it's all about what I'm projecting. But when the Nazir grows his hair, what he's actually doing is he is trying to connect to a world that's above him, but he realizes that it's above him. That's why he's got to stay away from the dead and from wine, because that's going to bring him into his own dynamic. What the Nazir wants to do is to elevate himself in this world. How does he elevate himself in this world? He's going to move the physical desires and the emotional desires. He's going to pull those down, and he's going to say, the hair on my head, which goes beyond my own mind, is dedicated for Hashem. And that's why the Shimon Atzai said those golden locks that are coming past where you are. In the end, you're going to cut them and put them on the altar. So when the hair is growing and it's full and it's beyond, so you could say, wow, I'm a good-looking Nazir, which actually the Talmud says. It says that, I can say the beauty of the Nazir. That's one of the ways he makes the vows. So you could think, I'm beautiful, I'm great, or we can say that there's a place where I'm expanding above what I am right now, and I'm doing it within the confines of the way Hashem wants me to extend myself. I'm not extending myself from within the system. From within the system, it's always back to me. Yeah, this is my hair. I look great. Okay, so fine. So now it's all defining when I'm trying to go past. I'm going past things that don't make sense to me. Now they're just foolish. Now they're just some other illusion of some sort. But when the Nazir grows his hair, he's saying that Nezel Kavarosho, he's got the crown of Hashem on him. He's realizing he's growing this hair. He's expanding his mind. He's going beyond, because that's the dynamic to reach that place. I'm not going to get involved with the physical. I'm going beyond that. No contact to the dead. No contact to the wine. And I'm going to let my mind, my highest part of me, go to a place that is even beyond myself. And that could be the explanation of, we said before, is it only for a person who's stuck in problems become a Nazarite? Or is it for anyone like Shimshon who wasn't in a problem? And the answer is both. A person who feels himself stuck within their system could say, I need to be a Nazarite. I need to go get control of my desires and extend myself past where I am. But a person who's not even in those problems and just feels in life that we're locked in some way, he yearns to get past that. And that's the lesson of the Nazarite that we could all take. You should not take on, no one take on a vow of Nazarite, because you can't do it now. The temple, you can't do it. But the idea that realizing that I want to be past where I am, but not within my own definition, because I'm trying to be past where I am and I'm defining it, I'm still in my system. And then the hair is haughtiness, the hair is extra, the hair is beyond what I can deal with. When I want to go beyond myself, but I do within the confines of saying, this is a level that I'm yearning to strive for, and that will take me to something beyond. That's very noble. So that could be part of your tefillah, part of your prayer. You say, Hashem, listen, I feel stuck in this. I want to get out. And that might mean sometimes doing hisbodedus, taking some time and thinking about things and opening yourself up to stretching past where you can, but not because you're doing it for yourself on your own terms. Doing with the knowledge that this is beyond where I am, and I'm hopeful and I'm praying that I could eventually be opened up to a level beyond me to be able to see more than my limited reality. And that's the power of the Nazir, and it should hopefully be able to affect and help us all.